get to the news. Former President Trump on Saturday said that the 2020 election should be overturned and the Constitution should be terminated. Well, I'll say this for him. He does give a memorable wedding toast. Tomorrow is the Georgia Senate runoff, and unfortunately, Herschel Walker's vote isn't going to count. President Biden said on Friday the Democrats must win the Georgia Senate runoff to avoid a 50-50 split in the chamber. But that would mean the end of my presidency, said Joe Manchin. After she was kicked off a Spirit Airlines flight, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie's niece, Shannon Epstein, reportedly injured 6 deputies while resisting arrest, including kicking an officer in the groin, which can only mean one thing: she's running. During last night's reception at the White House for Kennedy Center honorees, President Biden praised the band U2 and said their music has changed the world. Damn, I knew Biden was old, but I didn't know he was that old. New York City recently posted a job listing for a director of rodent mitigation, which will pay up to $170,000 a year. Wow, $170,000 a year to say maybe don't serve dinner in the gutter? Might that mitigate? According to the latest numbers, crime on New York's subway last month decreased by 13% because it's hard to commit a crime if you can't move your arms. Rapper Bad Bunny was named Spotify's most streamed artist worldwide in 2022. No word yet on what he's doing with his $6. A tortoise named Jonathan that lives on the island of St. Helena recently celebrated his 190th birthday with his 140-year-old trophy wife. Everyone's laughing at you, Jonathan. And finally, amid the chaotic pre-sale for Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, more than 24 fans recently filed a lawsuit against Ticketmaster's parent company, Live Nation, for unlawful conduct. And while a trial is still a long ways off, pre-sale tickets are already available. Today is the Georgia Senate runoff, and there's only one candidate in the race who definitely knows that. Georgia Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker said during a rally over the weekend that he doesn't know what a pronoun is. And someone said, it's what you call your illegitimate kids. And he said, oh, them? That's right, Herschel Walker said at a rally over the weekend that he doesn't know what a pronoun is. Okay, it cannot be good for Raphael Warnock's self-esteem that this is a close race. I mean, imagine seeing your opponent basically eating paste on TV every night and knowing he might win. When asked yesterday about former President Trump calling for the termination of the Constitution, Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse asked if Republicans, quote, want to keep giving oxygen to someone who is trying to sell tickets to his own proprietary circus, or do they want to be a constitutional party? Said Republicans, we're thinking. President Biden today toured a semiconductor manufacturing company in Phoenix, Arizona, and honestly, I don't even know if he did that because he's the president or just because he's 80 and it's Tuesday. Come on, kids! Come on, it'll be interesting. My friend Frank works over at the semiconductor place. He's gonna give us a look at it. You don't have no idea. You use semiconductors every day. In a new interview, Eric Trump pushed back against reports that the Trump family doesn't like Don Jr.'s fiancée, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Okay, but keep in mind, he also thinks they like him. Indonesia's parliament today outlawed premarital sex. What? But that's the good kind. A middle school nurse in Florida was accused last week of taking more than 100 Adderall pills from at least 5 children and replacing them with aspirin. And she had the right to remain silent, but that's not an option after 100 Adderall. Okay, I wasn't supposed to do that, but also maybe it's okay because that means someone down the road will know not to do it. So that's actually for the greater good when you think about it. And you know what else? I should totally write a novel about this. And that was Adderall Theater. It was recently announced that the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in Atlantic City will close at the end of the year because when you walk around Atlantic City, anything becomes believable. And finally, a charity in Australia recently attempted to break a Guinness World Record by lining up nearly 1,100 wrapped presents. It would beat the previous record holder, someone whose parents just got divorced. And that's a Merry Christmas monologue joke from the monster Mike Scollins. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock is projected to defeat Republican candidate Herschel Walker in the Georgia Senate runoff race. And if you think you're relieved, imagine how relieved Herschel Walker is. He just narrowly avoided a 6-year-long pop quiz he did not study for. That's right, CNN last night projected that Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock will win re-election, and then Herschel Walker picked up an iron to call and concede. The Trump Organization was found guilty yesterday in a New York court for criminal tax fraud. Trump will be sentenced to 4 years as president. That's right, a Manhattan jury yesterday found former President Trump's company guilty of orchestrating a 15-year criminal tax fraud scheme. Though it's succeeded, there was always something wrong with the syntax of the joke. For me, it was written fine. No, let's do it one more time. Sorry, Baze. You know what the worst thing is? Our head writer is allowed to fire me. That's right, a Manhattan jury yesterday found former President Trump's company guilty of orchestrating a 15-year criminal tax fraud scheme, though it succeeded for... No, how dare you! My name's on the door! I'm gonna try, all right. Though it succeeded for so long. Though it succeeded for, okay. Though it succeeded, okay. This better work. That's right, a Manhattan jury yesterday found former President Trump's company guilty of orchestrating a 15-year criminal tax fraud scheme. Though it succeeded for so long, there's no way Trump had anything to do with it. We gotta have a rehearsal from now on. President Biden visited Arizona yesterday for the first time in his presidency. Said Biden, "Wow, the last time I was here, this was all flat." All right, Baze, you know what? I'm gonna turn the tables. That joke makes no sense. Can you go back? I want to say, yeah, they all laughed because he's an old man, haha, but President Biden visited Arizona yesterday for the first time in his presidency. So, like, for the first time in 2 years. That meant 3 years ago he was probably there. Why was it flat then? Maybe if it was, like, for the first time since he was a kid, then the joke works, because he's so old. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make something clear to all of you. We're all doing a bad job. Okay? And I will make this same speech at the Christmas party. During last week's White House state dinner, French President Emmanuel Macron reportedly toasted President Biden's re-election campaign. Either that, or Biden said he was running again and Macron just started drinking. President Biden yesterday encouraged Americans to get updated coronavirus vaccine shots ahead of the holidays, if for no other reason than Santa's 2,000 years old. Is that Scollins? Who wrote that? Scollins? Scollins wrote that joke. He's one of our writers who doesn't like people. And what he wanted in the key was Santa on a ventilator. That's just hearing it. That's the reaction you make when you hear it. He wanted to show it to you. New York's annual SantaCon bar crawl is this weekend, and more than 60 bars are expected to participate, as well as several local jails. BuzzFeed announced plans yesterday to lay off roughly 180 staffers. Even worse, the way they announced it. Boy, somebody put Santa on a ventilator with that joke. Ben & Jerry's announced yesterday that they will release a new flavor curated by director Ava DuVernay. Meanwhile, the James Cameron-inspired flavor is currently 10 years behind and $200 million over budget. Regulators in Minnesota this week accused a marijuana edibles company of selling gummy bears that were 50 times more powerful than what is legally allowed to be sold. This actually happened last year, but all the witnesses just woke up. And finally, according to a new survey, just 2% of Americans said that they never felt happy when someone they like succeeds at something. Or as they put it on Instagram, "Oh my God, I love that for you." WNBA star Brittany Griner was released today from a Russian prison in exchange for an international arms dealer. It's the first time the U.S. has traded an alleged weed smoker for an international criminal since 2016. President Biden tweeted this morning about the release of WNBA star Brittany Griner from a Russian prison and said, quote, "She is safe, she is on a plane, she is on her way home, and I'd say she's happy, but she's still a 6'9" person on a plane." Former President Trump's legal team reportedly found at least 2 items marked classified while searching through one of his Florida storage units. And that's not all they found. "I'm having trouble with my rent." That's right, Trump's legal team reportedly found at least 2 items marked classified in one of his storage units in West Palm Beach. You needed a storage unit? How many documents did you steal? You live in a hotel. For the first time in 4 decades, journalists and staffers at the New York Times last night began a 24-hour strike to protest for better salaries and benefits. So for today only, there were 2 reasons why posting your Wordle score makes you a jerk. According to a new study, it takes the average American worker 1 year and 7 months to feel like they're thriving in a new job. Here's the study. Oprah recently released the annual list of her favorite things. Coming in at number 1, creating a monster. Firefighters recently rescued a puppy that swam about a mile across the Hudson River from Manhattan to New Jersey. They tried to return it, but it had already found an affordable home with a backyard and started a family. The appliance company Dyson is set to launch a set of noise-canceling headphones with a detachable air purifier. It's part of Dyson's longtime mission of trying to figure out what the hell their company sells. Headphones? And finally, Google released its annual year-end search list yesterday, and the most searched TV show in the U.S. was Euphoria, as in, where can I get the drugs they were doing in last night's Euphoria? And that was a monologue, everybody.